Hi there and welcome to my video. Today I'm going to show you how I make this mixed media piece in my art journal. I've wanted to experiment with this kind of style for a while, and today is the day. So I am working in my art journal. This is a watercolor pad. It is 140 pounds, so it can withstand a lot. This is the last thing I did in it, and I'm going to put a little link to that video up in the corner so you can see it if you're interested. But I like using the art journal because it gives me an opportunity just to experiment and play. And this is an experiment today just to see how it works. So these are some papers that I've gathered. This is a print of a beach scene on some deli paper. I did spray on top of it just to set it so it wouldn't kind of bleed when I used the satin medium on top. So it does have a little bit of a shine, but it doesn't really bother me. So I'm using the satin medium to adhere all the papers, and these are papers that I got as a collage pack from online. They're kind of thin, so I wasn't sure how it was going to work out as far as putting some heavy media on it and using a lot of layers of the medium to keep it down. But it is important when layering papers to make sure that you put some kind of barrier in between each of the mediums. So if you're going to put paint on top of papers, you do want to put a layer of the satin medium or whatever medium that you're using. So it does create a barrier and it doesn't have the paper absorb the paint or whatever you're putting on top. So it creates a little bit of a layer and it protects the paper so the paper doesn't buckle or disintegrate, especially when you're using papers that are thin like these. So I'm just arranging the papers in a way that I like, kind of giving it a little bit of a rough edge on that right one, and just putting them down so that they lay flat and that they will withstand some extra moisture on top. So I'm putting the medium on top as well. And I am keeping in mind that I'm putting this on top of the papers, so I wanted to just see if that would show through a little, and it does. So my goal for this project is to just create this background, but make it more subtle so that it doesn't seem like the papers are just sitting in the background. I'm putting some heavy objects on top just so that while it dries flat. And this is the spray that I use, the Rust-Oleum Clear. It does help when I spray it on top so that it doesn't smear the black ink. So next what I'm doing is just using a little of the white fluid, titanium white fluid, and I'm mixing it with water because I want to create just a little bit of a wash so I can put it on top of the papers. And I'm just kind of experimenting with this paper just to see how it looks. I don't want to go too heavy or dark with the first round because then I can't remove it. So I'm just trying to work a little bit in layers. So I added a little more paint and I'm pretty happy with that. So I'm just going to put on that first layer of a wash. And already you can see how it's kind of pushing the papers into the background, but it's not covering them up. So that's my goal. So now what I did was let it dry and I'm adding some more titanium white fluid and just kind of doing another layer. And I think that's really the key to this process is being patient and not adding too much paint and doing it in layers so that you can get your desired effect without overdoing it. So putting it on, it does look a little dark, but I still like how you can see through to the papers. And I know it's going to dry a little lighter too. So it's pushing the papers into the background without covering them up. You can kind of see the details still are there. So now that I'm done with that, I'm just going to dry it really well so that I can adhere the kind of beach scene on the bottom. So I'm just fitting this so it's the right size. And I also have these birds that I want to put in the distance as well. I just found these online. I just kind of Googled free birds in distance, and I printed them on deli paper as well. And it works out perfectly because deli paper is a little bit, you can see it a little bit when you glue it down to things, but when you put it on a white background, you can't see it. So this is another piece of paper I wanted to add. I wanted to add just a little more dimension to it. So I'm making this little S paper a little darker. It's a little darker white than the rest of the background. And I wanted to see how that would look if I layered papers on top of the already washed papers. So this is regular titanium white, has a little bit more pigment than the fluid, so it is going to be a little darker. And I'm just adding that to the top. I wanted to make a little bit of a wash to show like different layers and a little bit of a darker white, but without really going crazy with any other color. So when I did the little drippies, I didn't like how they were going to one side. So I just wiped it off and started over. And that's the great thing about an art journal. You can do these things. It's all for experiments. So second time I just held the journal a little bit differently and they went down straight. So there is the S paper, just building layers, and I just wanted to see what it would all look like, layer after layer. So again, using my satin medium, because it does seal the papers and it keeps them from decomposing. So this is Mars Black. I just wanted to make a little bit of a gray tint and create a little bit of interest with the splatters. It's really easy to do if you just kind of tap it on another harder object. So making some gray splatters and then a few white splatters just to add some more subtle layers to the piece. And then I wanted to really kind of fine tune this cutout so that it blended into the piece without having those kind of hard edges. I wanted it to really meld with the background. So I'm just fitting it and kind of making a little off center. I like that look. And then you can still see a little bit of the papers underneath. So when I put this down, I'm very aware that the ink from my inkjet printer will probably bleed a little. So I have to work fast and not smush it around too much because then it starts to really get to be like one clumpy ink blot. So I'm using this tool just to flatten it all out and trying to work quickly and not smudge it too much and then just kind of let it go. You don't want to mess around with it too much because then it starts getting messy and then it'll be worse than when you first started. So just flattening it out and letting it go. And then this is a Stabilo pencil that can pretty much write on anything. So I'm just adding some interesting marks, very subtle, nothing too heavy, because I want everything to kind of just softly go together. So there are the birds, and I'm just putting them down with the satin medium. Again, this is printed with my inkjet printer, so I'm trying to work fast and just get it down on the paper without smearing it too much. I always end up kind of playing with it, and it's not a good idea to do that. Just want to put it down and let it go. So here it is. I was really happy with how it came out because it was just an experiment to see if I could create this kind of subtle feeling background with these layers, and I really like how it turned out. Thanks so much for following along today. Here are 2 other videos that might interest you of some other tutorials I've done, and I hope to see you again soon.